And Jimmy's emotional on my behalf, and he came up and he's like welling up, and we hugged and we just cried while hugging, like in the hallway of the Tonight Show. Which the funny thing about that is that Jimmy never doesn't have 15 people around him when he's in those hallways. So there's like a photographer standing there like, you know, like,
you not only your house burned down, but you went on Fallon like that night.
Yeah, so my house burned. So there were 3 waves of fire, and my house burned in the first 25 minutes of the Palisades fire. So it swept down. There were 100-mile-an-hour winds. So they called it the blowtorch. And so like I had my Tesla and I had my fire safe at the house that I wanted to get out, and I sent a friend up the PCH. And by the time he got to he's like, dude, I got to turn back. Because he's like, your house is on fire, the neighborhood's on fire. And I actually found out that my house is on fire from the temperature reading of my Tesla. So my Tesla, so Teslas have a water sensor, they have a fire sensor, and it went from like 72 degrees to like 110 to 310 to like fire and then offline. And so, yeah, wait, what? Well, can I say something about that? So the firefighters, and this is funny, the firefighters called my Tesla the Menorah because I had a 2015 version of it with the old batteries, and they said they called my car the Menorah because it burned for 8 days and 8 nights.
Your house burned down. You went on the show that night. You didn't cancel the performance of the show. You went through with it. This is a heroic comedy thing. Sometimes this happens in comedy. A loved one dies, a parent dies or something, and you go ahead and you still have to do the show. How did you feel about going on before? Like, how were you in the wings going, were you thinking, am I going to be able to do this?
Well, I first got there, and Jimmy's a friend of mine, and he's a really great person. And I've joked around with Jimmy because he's very friendly like I am. And I joke around with Jimmy, and because he's really that nice of a guy. And Jimmy asked me one time. He's like, hey Pete, I can't not do his voice, but he goes, Pete. He goes, you're a nice guy. He goes, how does that feel like coming up in entertainment and getting notoriety? And I go, Jimmy, I'm currently building the same prison for myself that you already successfully built. And it's because he's so nice, and he can't go out in the world and be in a bad mood. He's got to be Jimmy Fallon. Oh my God, dude, this is rad, you know. And so.
Whereas Gene Hackman could mug anyone off, right? He doesn't need to behave himself at the grocery store, does he?
Yeah,
sure.
And you always hear those stories about Will Ferrell, which, by the way, Will Ferrell goes to the Equinox gym, and he'll stand there and talk to everybody at the smoothie bar until nobody wants to talk to him anymore. He's the nicest guy, but in the list of celebrities who are quote-unquote mean, Will Ferrell always gets in the top of the list because maybe he just was having a bad day or something like that, and he's like, yeah, I just don't want to talk now, and then those people all get together on a Reddit thread called Will Ferrell's an ass, and then and they talk about how mean he is. But yeah, I mean, I guess so I've never seen Jimmy Fallon anything other than happy, and Jimmy walks up to me in the hallway, and this has been happening a lot of my shows where I do this material. And the funnier that it gets, the more I get to actually speak honestly and emotionally about how traumatizing it was. And so I have people at my shows right now that they'll be laughing, and almost like a sitcom where it's like a fun moment, or a drama where there's a funny moment. The tension really builds. But I have people at my shows, like, they'll be wiping tears away from the divorce section. Again, I do not disparage this person on stage. I have to tell you that because I signed a legal document saying I wouldn't. But anyway, I talk about my feelings going through a divorce, and I talk about the house burning down, and there are people that are like laughing and wiping tears, and I'm dating a gal, and she was standing on the side of the stage, and she goes, oh my God, she goes, you're fucking these people up. And I was like, wow, yeah, I really am. And people will come up afterwards and they're tearing up. So I see Jimmy, and Jimmy's emotional on my behalf, and he came up and he's like welling up, and we hugged and we just cried while hugging. Like in the hallway of the Tonight Show. Which the funny thing about that is that Jimmy never doesn't have 15 people around him when he's in those hallways. So there's like a photographer standing there like, like, I don't know, do I get coverage or don't I? It's digital. And Jimmy and I are just crying awkwardly with people like going, okay, so this is weird. And then I said it on stage last night. Jimmy was like, dude, it's so brave that you're here. And I was like, I don't have anywhere else to be, Jimmy. And like, I don't have a home. And And see, but that's funny, right? Like, but
Well, this is it. Well, tell me about that. About the kind of the wielding of that painful thing into material. Because the stuff I was hoping you would do stuff on it last night, and you did, and it was such crushing, funny stuff.
Oh, thank you.
How soon were you able to get? Like, did you need distance from it to be able to joke about it, or was it straight away, or what? You know?
No, I apparently am. I'm a sociopath. But honestly, when my house started burning, I was getting ready to do the Tonight Show, and I was running my set at the Cellar, and I was doing about 9 shows a night down at the Cellar. I was doing every single show that they have in their available to me. And so my house starts burning, and then my neighbors were still there, and then like I could see like the last frame that I had from the ring cam was just fire around it, and so I'm showing everybody at the Cellar, and I'm sitting at the table, and I'm sitting with some of the funniest people in the world, and I'm in shock, so I'm joking around about my house burning down, and then my funny friends were like, dude, you got to take that on stage, and so I would run my Tonight Show set, and then I'd be like, hey guys, just so you know, my house is burning down right now, and the crowd would kind of giggle, and then I had a line, because I was not drinking before the Tonight Show, just because I wanted to get my face in shape, and I would lift up my cocktail, and I go, when your house is burning down, dry January is over, and then that got a big laugh, and the funniest part about that was the Daily Show did that joke, and then also SNL did that joke like 2 days later, but I did it first. But anyway, so that got a laugh, and then I was upstairs, and there's a real famous comedian that was like, he's been over to my house, and he goes, hey, isn't that your house on TV? And my house is on TV, and because there was a concrete area where the news vans could, because my house is right on the ocean. I'm a surfer. I basically was spending a crazy amount of money just to be able to walk across the street and surf, and so the news vans could be right at the concrete, and then they could safely be away from the flames. And then if the flames came, there's ocean, you know? So that's where they camp. And this person goes, hey, Pete, isn't that your house on the news? And I was like, oh my God, that's my house. And we turned it up at the Cellar, and this is a true story. I told it on the Tonight Show. The guy goes, some people are learning right now that their homes are burning. And I was like, oh my God, that's me. And so I took that on stage, and so the second show I took that, I was like, you know, dry January's over, and then I was like, yeah, I told the story about the news guy, and I'm like, look at me, I'm somebody. And then I just riffed the line. I never wrote it down, but I riffed the line. My friend goes, which house is yours? And I go, the orange one. And I go, it used to be white, now it's blaze orange. And then I riffed, I was just trying to think of some, like a logo that had flames in it. And I go, my house, my house is so on fire. And one of my favorite things to do, I've done it on a lot of late night sets, but I'll be like, my house is so on fire. How on fire was it? And that's like just a repeated thing that I love to do. And I go, my house is so on fire that it looks like a Guy Fieri restaurant logo. And so that got a laugh. So now all of a sudden I'm starting to create a bit. And then by the end of the night, I had created a bunch of material about it. And so that was the night of the 7th. And then I was really in shock. And then I went home that night, and I called some of my neighbors, and we just cried. We like cried on FaceTime, and it like really hit me. And then the next day I had to like go into, okay, now this is real, and now I've written all this stuff, and then my brain just kept writing more jokes because I had a feeling, my gut feeling was that I was going to go on the Tonight Show and talk about this in panel, and I didn't know how it was going to happen because the guests on the show were Cameron Diaz and Jamie Foxx, and then Gabriel Iglesias, and basically, you know, Gabriel Iglesias is like Mr. LA, so he can't go on the day that it's currently burning and be like, waka, 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 you know? And and Gabe and I both have the same manager. Well, Gabe kind of did me a solid. Gabe backed out kind of knowing that if he backed out, I would be one of the lead guests.
Oh, that's cool.
And, yeah, and then
that's kind of him.
Yeah, Cameron Diaz and
Jamie Foxx.
Cameron Diaz and Jamie Foxx, they couldn't go on because they were so sad that the homes were burning and their homes weren't burning, and so they couldn't go on because they're chumps. But I'm kidding. I don't disparage them, but But anyway, so they pulled Willie Geist up from the MSNBC news desk to be the lead guest because I couldn't be the lead guest. But there was a while there where Jimmy was like, "Oh my God, I think you're the only guest," and I'm like, "Great." But it's my dream. It is my dream that somebody's like, "There's a comedy emergency," and I'm like, "I'll help."
Yeah, yeah, of course.
That's my dream. I just want to use my powers for an emergency. So. So Jimmy was like, "Dude, I'm so glad that you're here." He's like, "It's so brave that you're here," and all this kind of stuff. And he goes, "I heard you've been writing jokes about this." And I go, "Yeah, I just had a feeling that I would end up going on the show telling like my house burned down jokes." And so we talked about it for a while. And he's like, "Well, obviously, he's like, the jokes that you have, he's like, I trust that they're going to be funny. He's like, I trust that they're going to come from love. It's not going to be disparaging to house burned down people." Anyway, but he's like, "I think we need to approach it by you talking about it seriously." And you've tried to get me to talk about things seriously in front of a crowd for the last half an hour, and I'm not good at it. And at one point, I just, like, during the sincere part of the thing, it was supposed to be no laughs, sincere, I was funny, and I turned to Jimmy and I go, "I'm sorry, Jimmy, I'm funny." And it was the whole thing was really touching, and it was moving, and it was funny. But the biggest anxiety that I had was the idea that I might go on the Tonight Show and cry. And as a comedian, that's probably your top biggest fear, is that you're going to go on the Tonight Show or like be doing something, it's going to go so poorly that you cry. But I was like, oh my God, if I cry, Jimmy Fallon said the funniest thing to me. He goes, "By the way, don't worry about it." He goes, "If you wind up crying on the show, the clip is going to get way more views."
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Is what he said to me. And it was so funny. When I was out there, I was like, if you see me smiling on the clip, I was laughing so hard that I was like, God, I'm so happy because I'm with Jimmy. I'm on the Tonight Show. I am talking about my home. It is emotional. I'm definitely getting a little choked up, but I couldn't cry because he told me that it would be beneficial. And so,
so then that took you couldn't authentically cry.
I couldn't authentically cry. And but the thing overall, it got 50 million views across all the social media platforms, which I feel guilty about because that is actually. I benefited from my house burning down, and there are a lot of people whose homes burned down that didn't get that benefit. They just got nothing, and then insurance didn't cover it, and they're also in entertainment, and they didn't get any shine from it. And like even Bill Burr went on Jimmy Kimmel 5 days later and talked about the fire. And he actually was like, "Hey man, let's give it up for the firemen, actually, because everybody's calling them bad and lazy and whatever." And dude, it was an unbelievable amount of grief that Bill Burr got just for saying nice things about firemen.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, "No, they're terrible in the city." And oh my God. Oh wait, can I tell you the funniest thing that I didn't talk about on stage? So so in the fires, we had these blue chairs, these blue Adirondack chairs in my neighborhood, and they're surrounded by succulents. And when I went to the neighborhood, I made this post on social media where I made it for I'm dating a gal. I went through a divorce, and I'm dating a gal, and I made the video just to send to her to go like, man, I haven't broken down and cried, but I'm gonna tell you what made me cry. And I was like, I've gone through the whole neighborhood, and you can see the neighborhood. It looks like Chernobyl. It's terrible. It's like a scene from a war movie, this neighborhood. And I'm like, just look at this neighborhood. And I was like, this didn't make me cry, but I'll show you the thing that made me cry. I go, we would go out to the ocean point, and we'd all have our coffee, and we'd all have our wine. And by the way, our stupid HOA, which I'm going to disparage them because what's an HOA without homes? It's just an owners association. By the way, that one was new, and I'm writing it down. That was a good one. But the stupid HOA, they fought us on putting these blue Adirondack chairs. So finally, me and my neighbor Daryl, we just went to Costco with his wife Sarah. We bought the Adirondack chairs for $800 a piece, split the cost, and then just put them out there and took the fines. And then the entire neighborhood, they just benefited from sitting in these Adirondack chairs. You could watch the sunset. It was in front of Sunsets, the surf spot. Well, I was prepared for the chairs to be melted to the ground, and that's where I was going to lose it. Where I lost it was I went out there, and the chairs were still there. And like it was untouched, and I didn't realize it, but they were surrounded by succulents, and succulents are just thick water. And so the fire tried to get to the succulents, but the water, tried to get through the succulents to the chairs, but it couldn't. Well, so these chairs are blue, and I posted this video, and I'm crying in the video. And the video, I didn't intend for it to go viral, but the gal that I'm dating was like, dude, you got to post that online. That really shows the humanity of the situation. And and you're crying, and you've really posted only jokes, and this really shows that you are human about this. And so I posted it online, and immediately it took off. But then the weirdest byproduct of it is there's some, I Googled it, I'm not familiar with the Bible, but there's some Bible verse where like God puts like a blue chair in hell. So when you're surrounded by all the trauma and chaos and evil, you can go sit in a little piece of heaven or whatever. And so in the video, I said, I go, these chairs, I go, all this amazing stuff, I go, the thing that I can't reconcile is that all these amazing things are happening during this traumatic period in my life. And I go, and I can't reconcile all this devastation with all the beauty. And I go, these chairs are a representation of that. And I said this line that I don't know if anybody's ever said it, but I go, this is just proof you can lose everything, but just don't lose yourself. And remember that there's beauty in there. And then I showed the chairs, and then the last frame of the thing, I just posted a picture, I tagged a picture of just me sitting in the chairs like that. Well, the Jesus people, the Jesus community, now they infiltrated the comments, and they're like, these chairs are God's blue chair amongst the evil, and we need to go sit in the chairs. Well, so the National Guard is guarding our neighborhood so that people don't go in and loot whatever. Or there are 2 homes that survived in our neighborhood, and they were just like meth people that were living in the houses and all this stuff. So now the National Guard keeps calling our homeowners association, being like, why are these fucking Jesus people? Like no looters are coming, but the Jesus people, they walk up the PCH, they try to come through the back of the neighborhood just so they can sit in God's chairs. And that's the funniest thing. I haven't talked about it on stage, but it's so funny. And by the way, if you're a Jesus person, I don't disparage you, but I don't.
Get your own chair.
Yeah, get your own chair. You can go to Costco and buy their Adirondack chairs, and they cost $800, and get succulents and put them around them. And then start a fire and see what happens. But,
thank you, Pete. Can we just have a moment there to thank Pete for that phenomenal, and for going through that, which presumably is ongoing. Like, where are you living now? What's your situation now?
So I don't know if I talked about it on stage last night, but I went and saw a furnished apartment in New York City. And I've been joking around with people that it's the easiest move to New York City that anybody could ever do because I didn't have anything. And when you move to New York City, it's impossible to get a moving truck in. You have to hire guards for your truck to guard the truck, and you have to give them enough money that they're making more money from you than what they could sell out of the truck. Yeah. That's how awful New York City is. And so I went and I saw a furnished apartment. Thank you. I appreciate you. See it? This is all really funny. And so I went and saw a furnished apartment, and the lady was like, oh, so you're on your way to the airport? And I was like, no, I think I'm home. I was like, I think I live here now. It was the only apartment showing where the person that showed the apartment left, and then the person stayed. I just started living there, and
so with all of these things, with all of these the very, very funny descriptions of the elements of the trauma that you've been through, elements of the sort of the life story you've been through, a lot of the funniest things you've said over and over again. Well, I just kind of riffed that, or that just came out, or I've just kind of discovered that.
Yeah.
Is that emblematic of your writing process? Do you do sitting down writing anymore? Have you ever, or is it all just about talking conversationally about your life and going, oh, that's good, that's come out of me well, I'll remember that?
I write things down. I definitely write things down.
But do you write them down once they're funny?
I write them, I do that. I definitely, like the thing, the Owners Association, I'm going to write that down and remember to do that. The most recent thing that I wrote down, so the gal that I'm dating has a kid, and he's turning 4. And it's so funny because the gal that I'm dating keeps telling me, she's like, you'd be a great dad because I'm really great with this kid. And so I just wanted to play a joke of like, what would somebody do to show somebody that they wouldn't be a good dad? And so I just gave him a stick of butter to play with. and that's the worst thing you can give a kid, dude. The floors were greased like a pan, and I cleaned it up, and it was really funny. But I just wrote down, giving a stick of butter to a kid is funny. And I don't know what I'll do with that, or if that will materialize in anything. But I'll just, if I say something in conversation or like owners association, I'll just write that down. And then before I go on stage, if I was standing right there, I would just look at my notes and I'd kind of pick up three new things that I wrote down. And oh, that's funny. And then I will let my mouth save me on stage. But I rarely ever write things down verbatim and go, okay, this is how you have to say it. If you've noticed, like, whenever you see a comic that sits down in a coffee shop and really writes, and and you can see that when they were writing the fun stuff, they weren't having fun. And so
How do you mean you can see that? You can see that from the stuff.
You can see.
You feel like you can see the writing.
Yeah.
You can see the writing process.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say a name of a comedian. But there's a really famous comedian that for a long time, he might have been the greatest comedian alive, and he had a big TV show.
For sure.
And he's a really, really great writer, and he's no fun. I've sat with him before, and he's not fun.